Excuse me. And I think
Can't hear Stephen there.
Sorry, Johnny. I think we're now live. Dermot?
A few seconds left, I think. Here we go.
Okay, we're now live. Hello and welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly on this Thursday evening. My name is John Preposterous Ryan. You're very welcome to Broadsheet readers, commenters, and even the trolls. Very big welcome to celebrity accountant Vanessa Foran.
Hi there, everyone.
Hello, Vanessa. Welcome. Big hello to Neil Curran in Dublin, our producer. Hello, Neil.
How are you doing, lads?
Okay. We're all grand in Dublin. Johnny Keenan in Kilkenny. Hello, Johnny.
How's it going? John, lads.
And I think that could be Stephen Garland. Oh, we've lost him. Okay. We have Dermot Bowen in the Mission Control.
Hello.
Lieutenant Uhuru out of shot just there. But a very special guest tonight is Kieran Tierney, journalist, freelance journalist, but also now current affairs blogger of the year. Congratulations, Kieran, from everybody here at Broadsheet. You won Blogger of the Year and Silver Award for current affairs blog posting. Is that right?
Yeah, two separate awards last Thursday night in Dublin. I was delighted, and what was really nice and kind of sweet was that I had been in New York for 10 days on a holiday, but I'd met up with Peter Mulryan, who you've had on this show of the Tune Babies Family Network, The Survivors. So I'd been with him 2 nights earlier in New York, and I actually got the silver medal for a blog I wrote about him. So there was a lovely synchronicity in my week last week.
It's fantastic. I want to ask you about the awards now in a second, but just to say that, just hello to everybody. I think there was a show on this evening by Gemma O'Doherty. I think that has just ended now, Dermot, has it?
I think it was 10 o'clock. It was to go off. Yeah.
Oh, it was to go off at 10 o'clock. Okay. Well, we were just talking about, myself and Johnny today, that how simple it is to put together one of these shows. And I mean, really, Neil will tell you, if I can do it, literally anybody can do it. And it's a fantastic platform for any kind of show. We've talked about shows on depression and, you know, you name it. But this YouTube platform anyway is a fantastic and really accessible way to do it. I'll talk anybody through how to put it together. But Kieran, you won for Current Affairs Blog of the Year, but the piece we were talking about there was on Peter Mulryan. It's a fantastic piece. I just want to say that we republished it on the site, and it really is an incredibly moving piece. Do you hear me, Kieran?
Yeah, the line is cutting up a little bit there, John. But yeah.
Okay, that maybe I have a new microphone. Can you hear that? Okay.
I don't know, is it a broadband connection problem or what? It's freezing a little bit.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Johnny and everybody else. Can you hear me? Neil, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
That's the problem, man. The more rural you go, the worse the broadband.
Oh, this is such a pity. Kieran, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Okay. It was smoother the last time I was on, but we'll see how we get on.
Okay, you can hear me now, though. Can you? No.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Kieran, how about turning on and off and just coming back on, and I'm sure it'll probably needs to be rebooted. Just before we get on to that, we were going to talk about the aftermath of the presidential elections. I wanted to go to you, Vanessa. You were predicting that Leah de Noriega would come second and would have a stronger vote. What was your feelings on Saturday morning?
I actually was quite surprised by Peter Casey's vote. I wasn't surprised he beat the Dragons, because I thought he would do the best of the Dragoons. I think my biggest shock was how poorly Sinn Féin did, more so than how well he did, Peter Casey.
Yeah, and what do you put that down to?
I think I posted it today, but I put it down to a lot of people thinking well, first of all, I don't think it was I don't think it's a representation that Ireland is racist or intolerant or anything like that. I think a lot of people felt comfort that Michael D was coming home anyway, and they just decided to do, to row in behind somebody else because they're just pissed off. They're pissed off that at grassroots level and at local level, nobody gives a shit. And I think that was represented as well when the hopeful candidates went around councils. There was just a complete disinterest that type of level of our public representation just seems to be neglected, and nobody seems to be taking it seriously. And it's I think it's time probably to go back and reinvest in it, and maybe it might attract more skillful people, more interested people into representation at that level. I know John O'Donoghue is running again at local level, and I know Dan Boyle, Broadsheet's Dan Boyle, is running again at local level. But I'm assuming Johnny's going to be running down there in Kilkenny.
Why would you think such a thing, Vanessa?
Excuse me?
Why would you think such a thing?
Well, are you not into all this anti-corruption and...
Yeah, doesn't mean I'm going to run though, does it?
Oh, that's a shame. I think you'd be a great candidate.
I don't think so, no. I definitely know a talent, and I definitely get behind someone who would share an awful lot of the concerns that you're talking about, and an awful lot of people are talking about.
Okay,
so hopefully there'll be independent people there that will get out and put themselves up.
I'd give you a vote, Johnny.
I'd give you a vote, Johnny. Because I just want to say a quick hello to Stephen Garland. Hello, Stephen. We can't hear you, but you look great. We'll come back to you in a second. Hello, Stephen, anyway. You're very welcome. We'll chat to you in a second, okay?
That's how bad rural Ireland is, lads. He can't be heard, and he doesn't even, and he has to have his head covered because of the cold. The boredom won his jobs. We don't even have heat in the bog. I'm sorry, Garen.
Kieran, sorry. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, it seems to be better now, actually.
Okay, that's perfect. We can hear you perfectly. Kieran, again, congratulations. You won blog of the year in the current affairs section, but your story on Peter Mulrine at Tune Survivor won silver. It was an incredibly moving piece, Kieran. I just want to congratulate you on that. And I know that you left the print industry 4 years ago for the precarious world of online, but it seems to have worked out. At least it's very rewarding creatively, I think, right?
It's probably true. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, as we all know, journalism is in crisis, so we have to kind of reinvent ourselves. And I mean, blogging is. I think a lot of us who are in journalism, we love to write anyway. And like 8 years ago, I took a gap year and went off, traveled for a year, and ended up like working with a charity in Nicaragua for 3 months. So I wrote, and I spent 5 months in Thailand. Scuba diving is a passion, so I wrote a travel blog for a year, and I got such a chase for blogging that when I was thinking of redundancy, I just decided to set up a new blog 4 years ago. So didn't really know where I was going with it, but I suppose you like to let your creative urges out or whatever. And I think if you find it kind of has morphed into social commentary and kind of injustice, because I think a lot of the stuff I've done the last year would be similar to things you guys have covered, but things like the Pope's visit and victims of abuse and people not getting justice, and even my elderly father was in hospital or on a trolley for 48 hours, so I blogged about that. So it's not an easy world, the online world, but the print industry is having its own crisis, so you kind of go, well, are you going to hang in grimly, or are you going to try and find a whole new world out there, So,
Kieran, you're very, you're often very provocative. When you were working at the Connacht Tribune, could you have written any of the stuff that you're writing now?
I don't think I'm provocative. I think I try to be honest rather than provocative, What I would say is I cover things maybe that I didn't have a license to, but I know I definitely would never condemn them for stopping me from writing about things. For example, I was 22 years there, so I often highlighted things like, say, the Palestinian cause or injustice through the Tribune. And people used to be surprised that like a regional newspaper would let you do things like, but I never encountered I had very good editors and I got great training. So they never, what might have annoyed me, I think, in the provincial world is say, I never got down to cover Shannon Watch during my time there. And that's been going on for 15 years because the Connacht Tribune coverage ends at the Galway border almost, you know, and also Shell to Sea was going on in the whole time that I was in the Connacht Tribune, and I never wrote about that because it was North Mayo and we were Galway and South Mayo. So, you know, provincial papers very much know their audience in their area. And I remember when I came back from the year away that I was talking about, a guy who's since become a friend of mine, Richie, had done that wonderful film, The Pipe.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I couldn't believe that nobody it launched at the Galway Film Festival, which is a fantastic festival. But nobody during the year I was away had picked up on the fact that a T.G. Carr cameraman who lives in Galway had made this incredible documentary about Shell to Sea from a point of view of his uncle and the locals. And I wrote a full page. So I had freedom to write, for example, a full page feature about Richie, even though it was 6 months after the film came out. So I can't start condemning the Tribune and saying, but I suppose that when you're a blogger, you have more freedom.
May I ask? You've focused a lot on Tuam, and I know that you've got very close to Peter Mulrine. Can I ask you how the Connacht Tribune have covered that story, and what your views on the local press and how they've? Is it the Tuam Herald? The
Tuam Herald as well. Yeah. Well, I suppose I was disappointed a few weeks ago. I think you guys had me on when the families had a Memorial Day and they had this blanket with 796 pieces, and the local papers didn't cover it at all. I mean, I did a piece of the Irish Times. That's not incredibly strange or anything, because when we talk to Catherine, we hear a lot about, you know, businessmen in the town wish that Catherine would go away and crawl under a rock because she was giving the town a bad name, and they wish the story would go away. That's not good for business. I think that's the same everywhere. Now, in fairness, there's all this talk of the local papers are burying or not giving the Tuam babies enough coverage for the start. My paper did do a full page on it before it ever hit. And Alison has become a friend of mine in the Mail, and she was the one who really broke it. Even her story didn't really take off until it went online. Yeah. And then I think when people in America, because if it's so I vaguely remember one of my colleagues, Denise, doing a full page with Catherine Corliss. She came in with all her research. They did a full, but it wasn't like a page one story or anything, you know. Okay. I think the magnitude of, this researcher did a thing for a local historical journal, you kind of go, okay, that's not a massive international news story. Maybe, you know, you have to stand back from something and see the magnitude of it.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, and I know for a fact, and I still think it's not, okay, the last couple of weeks it has, but it's not getting the coverage it deserves because of the whole issue of where these children ended up. Are they really dead? And also the illegal adoptions to America is a huge scandal, which we haven't uncovered at all, you know. And I know I've heard stories, but, you know, of nuns from rural Ireland going to California to collect money every year on the birthday of a child that they had farmed out to America. So it's like I have a piece in Irish Central, Niall O'Dowd's Irish American website yesterday about the screenings in New York and how international it is. And for example, I live in Rahoon in the west side of Galway. At the screening I was at in Queens last week, there was a man 2 seats away from me, stood up at the questions and answers session and identified himself as a man whose mother had been in the Tuam home at the exact same time as Peter's mum in the early 40s. His mum then, when she managed to escape or get out, or I don't know how she got out, moved to America and brought up her, I don't know how many siblings he has, or brought up her kids, say, in New York, never having told them that she had been imprisoned in June and that he had an older sister who, funnily enough, lives 2 estates away from me in the west side of Galway City. So we had a great chat. Wow. And it was like, you know, so many of these poor Irish women brought these secrets to the grave, but the ones who made it to America, my God, they had such a better life, I presume, than like the likes of Peter's mum, who spent her whole life in in a Magdalen laundry, and was institutionalized so much that she wouldn't have left, even if she was offered the opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
which in fact she was, wasn't she?
Yeah, and she was, because Peter tracked her down and visited her. But so this was incredible week or two for Peter and his wife, because at the 5 screenings they went to, well, 2 of them were in Irish community places, and at those screenings they met people like that man Tim that I'm talking about, that I had Peter had met him, or I don't think he'd met him before, he knew of him, and that guy was saying, oh, I come over to Galway, I have a pint, my sister lives his sister lives 5 minutes from me. So this sister probably was born in that home, and he had to track her down. So that's why it is an international story, and I know the likes of the New York Times has covered it very well. So yeah, there is of course that little bit of small town thing. Oh my God, because God has the people of Tuam, and I think I spoke about that the last time when those women came down with the quilt. Some guy actually didn't want them give them directions to the site. He'd prefer if they went away in their bus, So
amazing, Kieran. I want to come back to you in a second, but I just want to say hello to Sean McAllister. I don't know if he can hear us, but Sean is. I'll just put up his image there. Hello, Sean. Sean McAllister is a documentary filmmaker. He made a fantastic documentary that Johnny had recommended to me, and in fact, when we get Sean on the line, maybe Johnny I'd like Johnny to maybe introduce him. I saw the documentary earlier this evening, and it's really, really a heartbreaking movie, and it's basically about Hull in north of England, once prosperous shipbuilding, fishing town, city, and it focuses on a guy. Sean, is Sean there? Anyway, we'll take
the mic off, Sean. Take your mic off.
Yeah, I think maybe that's okay. But Kieran,
you should press his mic.
Yeah, maybe Johnny, you could drop him an email. Just tell him that. Yeah.
I think he knows.
Okay.
Okay. I think he can hear us. We can't hear you, Sean.
Okay.
To Hull or to Connacht?
I think Sean may be on the phone to somebody else, Johnny. So we won't disturb Sean. Yeah, Kieran.
Oh yeah, no, he knows that he's on at 11, but I think he's just sitting in. So
of course,
I said if you want to sit in,
oh yeah,
the link.
Oh, perfect. That's grand then.
Once he unmutes his thing, he's in. He knows that. I'm sure.
Well then I'll come back to Kieran. And Kieran, tell me about the Peter's trip then to the States that you were.
So these 2 young film, like Galway is thriving with films. Actually, I was just talking about Richie O'Donnell's documentary, The Pipe, which was fantastic. Richie made 8 years ago, but 2 young women in Galway decided. Well, the mum of one of them is a friend of Catherine Corliss, or had done a porcelain shoes project with Catherine. So she decided to accompany her mum to Catherine's kitchen, which we all know is a treasure trove of information and documents and maps and piles of letters. And Catherine had this incredible audio from a really lovely old woman a lay woman who had worked in the Tuam home, about how she felt about the children, how badly they were treated. And she allowed this young filmmaker, Mia, access to the files. Nobody else had looked for it ever for the audio. I think the lady had died, actually. Julie Gavin is her name. So Mia and another young lady called Alice collaborated, filmed in an old asylum in Ballinasloe, and built a film around this lady's audio, but also Peter's kind of search for a new life, because Peter didn't leave home until he was 32 and was very badly physically abused by kind of a foster brother in the family. That he had a woman in her 70s and a much older guy in his house. He shocked the audiences in New York with tales of how he was beaten with nettles in summer and things like that, and made to feel so bad. So Peter's quest to find, I don't know, self-respect, love, self-confidence is central to the film, as well as the audio, and it's very effective, and it's 20 minutes long. So there's lovely footage of Peter like playing hurling in the back yard with his grandchildren and sitting around the table with the other survivors, because as you all know, and you've had Kevin on regularly, their lawyer, they have quite a strong little group now of the survivors of the home. So they put together this very moving, harrowing documentary, 20 minutes long. They were invited to, I think, at least one film festival in New York, and I think one in Boston. But they organized, me and Alice, the two young women, organized 5 screenings around their time there, including the one that I went to last Tuesday night, which was in an Irish cultural centre out in Queens. And it was amazing. The chat, the socialising, older Irish people had come in. I met one lady who came all the way in from Yonkers. People had made 2 or 3 hour journeys on a Tuesday to go and see this documentary because they wanted to talk and they wanted to hear Peter's talk.
Wow.
So,
In
and like I
Boston,
said, the first time I heard Peter speak was in a graveyard. And I wrote the blog this year. I wrote a blog last year about the same thing. And what I was disappointed about was I was the only journalist there. And a couple of papers said to me, "Oh, we wrote about that last year." And that's the one now that won the Silver Award. So Peter, the first time I ever heard him speak was at a thing called the Flowers for the Magdalene ceremony in Bohermore Cemetery in Galway. There's one in, there's a few of them simultaneously in February or March every year around the country. And Peter cried and spoke and said who he was and talked about his little sister. And I think nobody there even knew who he was. And to see him now sitting on a top table at a film screening with his wife and 2 filmmakers and fielding questions from left, right, and centre, and well able to go and well able to talk about injustice. And actually, it was amazing timing because I was there on the Tuesday last week, which was actually the day it was announced they'd exhumed the site. Wow. So I was joking to all the Americans saying, "I'm actually the luckiest journalist in Ireland tonight because they're all looking for this guy." And
incredible.
You know, he would. I know Catherine was brought to the site on that Tuesday afternoon. People were looking for Peter, but he was in America. So I think they had a really good experience. They made a lot of connections. And of course, the thing to remember is, and people wonder why don't they let this die, but Peter has no idea. His wife, his younger sister, who is 10 years younger than him, could actually be walking around Boston or New York or Chicago or somewhere as we speak.
Yeah.
We don't know if she was adopted or not. So it was really nice of the 2 young women to invite Peter and Kathleen, but that really made for a really strong night at all because they had a questions and answers session at all 5 screenings. And the film itself is only 20 minutes, so but it's very moving, very touching, and it really, I could hear audible sighs from the crowd even during it, you know. So a lot of the people there didn't really know much about this story or this aspect of Irish life, you know.
But I heard in Boston there was another audience member or a couple of audience members who came up and said that they were involved, you know, that they might have had relatives in Tuam.
Exactly.
Well.
It was 100. There's another article in Irish Central today, actually, written by an academic, and I had a quick scan through it, but 150 turned up for that screening in Boston. So, you know, and there were very, very powerful questions and answers sessions, you know.
Yeah.
So it kind of shows that you know, you were talking to me, how did the local papers handle it originally? I don't think they realized maybe the significance of it, or, oh, this is all buried and that place closed down how many years ago? 40 years ago, it's in the past. So I think, you know, it took a while for the whole world to wake up to the significance of it, and to hear people really in shock in New York, you know, and going, wow.
Incredible. Yeah. I always felt that the pressure would come from America, really, like us, you know, ultimately, you know, that the pressure not just to exhume, but just to deal with this, and the exhumations all over Ireland, really. There's Besborough, you know, there could be other burial sites, Kieran. But I do feel that the pressure will really come from America.
Yeah, and I think it means an awful lot to Peter and his group when they get support from places like America, and they hear their stories being listened. You know, until last Tuesday, there was an awful feeling that they were going to be fobbed off by the government, and then I think because of all the coverage and, you know, the New York Times coming and doing this really incredibly moving, I think, 5-minute video about the whole story and a big, long feature, that the government kind of had to be embarrassed. And like this talk of putting in a memorial on the site and just letting it be.
I know.
You know, they were ashamed almost into doing it.
What did the Americans say about that possibility? I mean, were they shocked at just the fact that the bodies are still there, or the bones are still there? Are they?
No, but I would say they didn't really. I mean, it was more about Peter's story and the story of the home, and a lot of them had never had a chance to speak in public before. You know, I could see people that were really moved and suddenly realizing where their mothers had come from. You know, the ones who had emigrated to New York, or I wasn't in Boston now.
Yep.
But Peter made the point very strongly that there's still no word in investigation. Now I know it's way back in the past, but you know he made it very clear they're not going to stand for this all being covered up. And I think it's their action so far, the groups that have been set up, Anna Corrigan's group as well. That's what's really pushed the government to this point, you know.
Yeah.
Not to let it go and not to just say put in a nice little memorial stone and let it be, because there's so many unanswered questions. And as you say, from other places, the night there was a lady whose mother had been in Castle Pollard, which is in County Westmeath. Same kind of story. Identified herself in Boston.
Really?
Yeah, so you know, and some of these just no more than Peter. Like Peter, okay, Peter knew he was adopted, and when he was getting married, and he still thinks it's a miracle every day that he met his amazing wife Kathleen, because he was taught to kind of despise himself so much. But when he and Kathleen decided to get married in the early 70s, that's when they decided to track down who his mum was. That's what led them to. When they were given the address, they didn't even know it was the Magdalen Laundry. You know, but I think no more than people like him. And then years later, after 4 years ago, finding out he had a little sister that his mother had told him had. There are people like Peter in America, in Brooklyn and the Bronx and South Boston. Maybe their mothers never told them that they had a baby before they went to America and got married or whatever. Just that shame in the past. I think that's what, you know, the audience was very much middle-aged and older, coming from Ireland of a certain generation. Oh, no, there were people in their 20s too. I wasn't actually at the screen. They had a couple of screenings then with very young students.
Right.
The audience reaction was very different. And actually, it was a lot more about the film because let's not forget the two filmmakers made a beautiful film as well. So a lot of their questions would have been how they went about putting the film together. Whereas, you know, the one I went to with the older people was very much Peter's story of the home. And the big question that everybody was asking is how could this have happened? How did Ireland let this happen?
Well, thank you very much, Kieran, and congratulations on your award. Really well deserved. Blogger of the Year, Blog of the Year award for current affairs, and silver award for the story on Peter. Thanks a lot, Kieran. But please stay with us because we have Sean McAllister. Sean, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you?
Oh yeah, where are we?
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Hey, Sean.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. We can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah. So I thought I was muted.
No, not at all. Sean, please say hello to Vanessa, Stephen, Neil, Johnny, Dermot, Kieran. A very big welcome to. I saw your documentary, Northern Soul, this evening, and it was incredibly sad and moving and heartbreaking and funny and all the things a documentary should be. But I want to commend you, congratulate you very much on this this work. I'm not very familiar with your other work, but on the strength of this, I shall go back on YouTube and onto your website and have a look. So congratulations.
Thanks.
It's a documentary that seems hopeless and is about hope, but and ends hopefully, but is incredibly sad, isn't it?
It's just reality, isn't it? Really, it's trying to give a voice to what's really going on. I guess for people trying to. I guess it's an attempt to look at social mobility, really.
And Sean, you went back to the premise of the story is you went back to Hull. And you were artistic director. Hull was cultural capital of Europe for
UK.
Yeah, for UK, and you went back to be artistic director of the opening event, opening ceremony, and presumably for the entire 12 months. Is that right?
It's 12 months before, leading up to that, as to prepare for the opening show, to let the year in, and then on the back of that was commissioned by the BBC and BFI to make a feature doc that would look at, well, I suppose a more personal story of me and my return to my city, I guess.
And
An attempt to look back at my roots. I'd left school at 16 into factory work and managed to find a camera through a community centre and find my way out into the world of film. So I was looking at how feasible that was today, and I came across Steve, who was a warehouse worker who wanted to use the cultural year as his dream.
yeah, Steve Arnott is the warehouse worker that you met, and you focused on him, and he was effectively trying to set up a rap bus, a bus where young kids could come on and rap and tour around the place and basically kick up the joint and have a lot of fun. And
yeah,
he was an incredible force of energy, this guy Steve. But may I ask about your parents? They're both in their 90s, and you kind of moved back in with them.
Yeah.
And but your mother is hilarious. She wouldn't let you out with she thought you went out looking like a mess, and you were like, I'm a serious filmmaker.
I'm a grown man.
And she was sort of wiping you down. How are they?
Yeah, my mum's just in hospital. She's just had a bit of a toe problem, so I've just been to see her in hospital. And we had a screening a couple of days ago with Michael Sheen, hosted the film in London, and I was just telling her about that, and she's kind of looking curiously, and she leaned forward out of the bed and said, he seems a nice man. Is he a Catholic by any chance?
Well, I was going to ask.
Pure mammy.
Is McAllister Scottish, is it? And it's not Irish, is it?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both somehow, but yeah, definitely. I've got family in Scotland, family in Ireland, yeah.
Sean, the movie reminded me, or of the period reminded me of 1988 in Dublin. We celebrated the millennial in 1988 in Ireland, in Dublin City. It was the city of Kieran. You might remember this too, or certainly Vanessa would remember it.
Sorry, John.
Remember 1988? Dublin was the kind of city of the millennium.
Yeah.
But it felt like I don't know, like lipstick on a corpse. You know, it was such a depressed period in Dublin, and it seemed that we were just sort of like.
There's Joshua Tree as well, you know. So we had something.
Well, we had I suppose you too, but I guess. I saw an image.
We
had something and had nothing. Sorry, John.
Actually, the only time guys Galway people went to Dublin then.
I was only. Do you know what?
Was to get the boat from Dunleary and Croke Park.
Stop it! I was thinking of Tony Keeley when John said 88. The first thing that came into my head was Tony Keeley.
That was the year after, yeah. But we were winning All Ireland. You'd go to Dublin for the All Ireland or semi-final.
I love the way you say All Ireland there, Kieran.
Yeah, or you'd go to London, and we used to be looking at all the deprivation between Euston Station and Dunleary, going, "Jesus, this place is terrible." You know, it was all run down. So sometimes we forget that things have improved in Ireland, and it was like most Galway people knew London better than Dublin back then, believe it or not. So,
well,
that was normal.
Forgive us, Sean.
We're talking about Hull. Sorry, Sean.
Yeah. But I mean, exactly how you said it's all run down.
Yeah, we have a rule in Ireland. We talk about GA within 5 minutes.
Sorry, we didn't mean to do that, Sean. Do you know? I featured Lil Balaka here on the show a couple of times. You know the headscarf heroes in Hull.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah,
she was on the show, was she?
No, Lil died in 1988.
Vanessa did a piece on her, and there was a glimpse of John Prescott, 2 Jags, in your documentary, but I was feeling that the Labour Party had really let Hull down big time, hadn't they? Or New Labour, at least.
Well, it depends who you talk to. You know, there was hope. We had Jeremy Corbyn come during the City of Culture. It was quite interesting that John Prescott joined him on stage and was welcomed by the hard left of Hull. Who it's quite kind of have short memories, don't they, people? Huh?
Yeah, and he was in the ship workers union, wasn't he? I mean, that was his.
He was, but he stood next to Blair during all of those years. But I don't know. People are quite split here because people also say that the schools and education system and there's a lot of social services that did benefit during the New Labour years that are really feeling the brunt of the Tory austerity cuts that people that work within social services say it was dramatically, significantly better under New Labour.
Okay, yeah, okay. I didn't really sort of. I didn't understand. I didn't sense that there was a lot of love for John Prescott, certainly in that room. Anyway, when it was a good moment in the documentary, and sort of. Tell me about Steve Arnott then. How is Steve now, by the way? Is he? Did he get the thing up and running again, or what's up?
Good since the film has got himself going as the managing director of the Beats Bus Limited now, so he's managed to move on from his situation, which after the film he left the warehouse and set up the company with the Beats Bus, and since the film's been touring he's managed to kind of get support from a number of organisations and foundations to support him and get funding for the bus, contracts with different organisations here.
Yeah.
So his dream is slowly coming alive, and the Michael Sheen screening last week was all about bringing foundations together in one room, including Comic Relief and different big setups to try to encourage them to step in and support community-based projects like Steve's that have been, 20 years ago were getting support and that have just been left, with austerity. It's just worsened.
Yeah. Why did you pick Steve? Why not somebody else, or why not a woman?
I would have happily picked a woman, but I think I picked Steve because we found each other, really. We found each other in the opening week, and his dream seemed like a story to follow. And I think also because he was white working class, tattoos, and we have an image of the white working class and tattoos in the North. And I think that he turned a lot of those preconceptions on the head when you start to really get to know him. He isn't full of the kind of prejudices that you imagine from the North or from the Daily Mail kind of perception. And he is hardworking, and he is dignified, and he was a voice of the North and a voice of the working class that I think has been kind of sadly missed from the mainstream media for years now, and has been replaced with all these hateful benefits programs that have somehow stolen the identity of the true working man, and I think that's what he represents, and that's why I chose him.
Sean, you mean things like Shameless?
I don't, not so much Shameless, because I think that was quite comedic, but I do remember comparing Shameless to The Boys from the Black Stuff.
Yeah,
it's
quite a leap.
I think more like Benefits Britain and all of these other Channel 5 kind of the representation. Has only been about people that have been, so that the ultimate message is ultimately, if you're poor, it's your fault.
Yeah, I did get a sort of sense of The Boys from the Black Stuff from the documentary. Although I thought Bleasdale was actually very patronising about the working class, personally. But
what, in The Boys from the Black Stuff?
Yeah, I did actually. I thought Yazzer Hughes was frankly a grotesque kind of character that didn't.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
But I thought certainly Steve was a very fully rounded character, wasn't he? I mean, he had an energy that it seemed rare from the people around him. Like he seemed to be on a kind of a different wavelength almost.
I think that's that artistic streak when you're stuck in a warehouse and you want to hip hop. I think the drive with hip hop had always there's a philosophy that goes with hip hop that I didn't appreciate until I met Steve, that had sort of taken over his kind of mantra in life, I think.
Yeah, he's a good rapper. I'm not an expert, but it's kind of half Sleaford Mods, half Eminem. It's kind of...
Yeah, and now it's much more mentor and teacher because he's getting on.
yeah, rap dad.
That's the soul by dad.
Yeah. It's a fantastic documentary. It's called The Northern Soul. Will you come to Dublin with it, Sean?
Yeah, we did Belfast already,
okay.
And I think definitely. I'm looking forward to coming to Dublin with it. There's no dates confirmed, but all my other films have played in Dublin, so I'm sure we will be organising that soon.
Well, Johnny was the man who suggested having you on this evening. I'm so grateful. Johnny, did you want to say hello to Sean? And
yeah, how are you, Sean? Love your work, and I don't know enough of it. Unfortunately, first time I came across you, myself and my wife were just happened to be looking at TV and going through the channels, and just the Syrian love story came on. So missed about the first 20 minutes, but really an unbelievable, compelling documentary right in the middle of the refugee crisis, you know, the child on the beach. And Sean was making his own documentary there in Syria. So, but I was driving somewhere with an idea in my head because I'm a promoter myself, and I heard you doing an interview with Orla Barry on News Talk. I suppose that's probably the one reason to listen to News Talk. Orla Barry, she's got a great show, The Green Room, and she's always interviewing interesting people like Sean.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave John Sinclair an interview there when no one else would a few years ago. But anyway, so after that, then I got to see this film, you know, and it was very difficult because these independent documentaries that you come across, they don't get on general release, and that's probably the most unfortunate thing in relation to how much effort goes into documentaries, that like for what Sean does, for example. So I just thought like the story was brilliant in itself, and I just wanted to find out more. And thankfully, Sean was accessible, and he sent me the link to review and such. But I just thought it was on so many different levels. This film has to be seen because it's of the working class, and unfortunately, when there's big budget happening and the working class is portrayed, it's usually by the opposite side, and that's kind of a little pet peeve I have. But he really
Ken Loach, isn't it?
Sorry, Sean.
Done usually by Ken Loach. That's all there is, isn't it?
True, or it's the full Monty, you know.
Oh right.
Well, yeah, exactly. When we listen to how Ken Loach does it, he really does capture the mystery so much so, like, you know, that you wonder, is it acting or real life? And I'd be a big fan of Ken Loach for that reason. And when I seen I'm Daniel Blake, that really hit a chord with the working class in Ireland now, as much as it did in England, I think, because we do have the same problems and such.
Well, Johnny, I think we've lost Sean there. I don't think he's a fan of Ken Loach.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I hope we get him back on. But the documentary is called The Northern Soul, and it's available. Is it available online anywhere? I know I saw it on Vimeo, but I needed a password, Johnny.
Sorry, Johnny. I had every intention of watching it, but I didn't get a chance, obviously, this week. So, but I'll get to it this weekend, and I'll do a review and I'll send it to you so you can send it to Sean.
Yeah, cool.
Brilliant.
Speaking of bunking off, he said.
He's bunking off, is he?
Yeah,
I was going to ask him about
his power's gone down, he thinks.
Oh, that's a pity.
It's the kind of thing Neil and I should do a vox pop from in Hull.
Absolutely. I was going to ask him about the House Martins and everything, but
and they've the new. They have the new. They have the Tate up there now as well. I'm dying to see it.
Of course, yeah. No, it's
the force.
And Neil there. Look at Neil there pretending he's not listening.
Well, Neil.
The three of us could go. Johnny, Neil, and myself.
Just like to say about the film there, that from what I kind of thought from looking at it, there was 4 different stories simultaneously going on. There was Sean, the guy with the idea who wanted to bring the beat bus to disadvantaged schools. He was an aspiring rapper himself, but it was more about the idea of underprivileged kids having something that he didn't have. And he was a factory worker, and he still aspired to have this idea, and it was costing him actual money. He was losing money by working in the factory. Well, the 2 guys that he was able to bring on, one guy was Harvey, who had a small bit of a stutter, but through the confidence building that he was doing. And then the other guy to come out with John as well, Blessing. He's going to be massive. Just
like the guy had he had a distinct stutter. He said he was a chronic stutterer, and it completely cured.
And like, you know, I can empathize with Sean in relation to going to the opening of a fancy exhibition or whatever, and there is the usual clique that's there. And that was very strong statement there as well, that the working class, and as I said, I looked at this through Hull because I'm very interested in Hull as a city, and how they got the city of culture from 250,000 odd people to the second most bombed city in the war. So how they were able to rebuild themselves and go through the 80s of Thatcher. So a lot of reflection in relation to how an industrial Northern England city is very similar to somewhere like Offaly, for example.
Okay.
You know, and that's why I was trying to make the comparisons. That art is something that's there, but it only seems to be there for a privileged few. So do you understand what I'm saying? So that's that's where I was making the similarities in relation to even though it was Hull, anyone in Ireland would completely get it.
Yeah, totally. Kieran, actually, speaking of cities of culture, what's happening with the Galway bid and all that?
Stop.
Oh my God! Don't mention the war. Yeah, no. Maybe you need to have this kind of catharsis before it actually happens. You know what I mean? Because the personnel changes and everything.
They want another 20 million, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, I bumped into the mayor on the street actually on Bank Holiday Monday, and he's confident it's going to be great. So, you know, they've had so many disasters already. Maybe they'll pull it all together at the last minute. It's incredible.
But wish us the best. That's the thing.
Well, I suppose on a bright note, for the local radio, I reviewed the Mockness Parade on Monday, and that shows that you're talking about working class are getting this city engaged. I mean, Galway has a population of 80,000, 54,000 turned up for the parade. So, you know, if you want to see a small city that does actually engage with the arts, come to Galway on the October bank holiday. Mockness very bravely moved away from the main arts festival in July when the city's full of tourists and put it on at this time of year when it's dark in the evening at 5:30, and it's magic and the kids love it. But you know, the City of Culture, it's a huge local scandal. I suppose people are just kind of, I suppose people involved in the arts are really, really concerned, and you know, productions are dropping and everything, but there's still a lot of time to go, you know.
When is it? It's 2020.
2020, yeah. So you know, okay, so more than a year.
It'll probably be a big success. You'll watch now. You know, it's usually
one of the guys being brought in to kind of rescue it is Piers Doherty, who used to be a saw doctor, but he's been an event manager at festivals all around Ireland, and he knows his stuff when it comes to festivals and things. You know, so I don't know right up to date, but it has been a scandal because you know people felt and. We have a lot of scandal in the arts, and you could say there's a theme that goes across the board. I've reported on the city council trying to bring in laws to ban amplification from buskers, and it's like, you know, do people want to come to Galway just to walk down the main street and see all these British or international chain stores, or do they actually want to experience the vibrant street culture of the place? Because you know, people from France and Spain tell me, "Wow, your city is amazing." The amount of music we hear in the streets and stuff, and maybe one or two are too loud, but the businesses are trying to cut them out. So it's the whole story of people looking and seeing what can they get out of the arts, and they're not putting it back in, or they're just seeing the tills ringing. They're not actually seeing what this can do for the long term good of the city. You know?
Yeah. Well, God, the city of the tribes—they're all at each other's throats at the moment. I mean, there's a lot of money at stake as well. I mean, I suppose that's part of the problem here, isn't it?
Yes, and apparently a lot of waste that we're discovering, you know. But and then there's the artists kind of feel, well, look, have we accountants? Vanessa, your accountant, no offense, but have the accountants running it? Is it all about the money, you know? And where's the focus? It seems to be, and I wouldn't mind, you know, even the buskers, for example, were on the pitch, the video pitch. For 2020, it started with a busker, and they were telling me recently, well, we could actually be banned from the streets of Galway or disappeared by the time 2020 comes around if the city council bring in these busking bylaws that they say are crazy, you know.
Well, I don't think accountants make those type of decisions.
No, but
that would be very much a point of view that the businesses are saying, "Whoa, this is going to be great for our pubs or our high street shops for a year." But like, what are we actually doing about putting on really good shows? And when you hear the likes of the Druid or whatever pulling out, you're going, "Oh my God, what is actually happening here?" So it's very bad communications, and it hasn't done good for like Lorna Siggins from the Irish Times did a really good piece about a month ago, and there's a lot of people worried, all right, but there is time.
They had the ocean boat race a few years ago, Kieran, and that was a bit of a financial fiasco as well.
Yeah, the Volvo, yeah, same thing. Like a
so,
lot of
like,
these...
you know, there's a lot to be learned from that. Like the money was given for culture, and if you can't get anyone in the council that is part of the thriving arts, like Galway has the best arts festival in the country, and it's probably the second oldest after Kilkenny. And they built
there's a
city around
Johnny.
that.
There's an Irish gem for you now. The head of the council is on the board of 2020. So if he goes in to a city council meeting where they bring up the subject of Galway 2020, he suddenly announces that he has a conflict of interest because he's on the board. So the man running the local government is involved, and he's saying, "Oh, I can't talk about that because I'm involved." So
okay,
that's actually not the conflict of interest as long as it's recorded in the minutes of both meetings.
Yeah. But it's a difficult situation. It's a difficult, and I know he means well, and he's campaigned very hard for this. But it's a difficult situation to be in when things are starting to, when people are having conflict about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it should come down to also, Kieran, I think, and it happened in Limerick as well. It's where the administrators come in and start going, like, artists are resourceful. They'll work within a budget, whatever the budget is. But they have to be realistic that the money was given because the art is there. And this is where the administrators have to take a step back.
Yeah, exactly.
But you see, I think the unfortunate thing with events like this is that administrators do too much of the operations. And as Johnny used the word artists, and just give the artists a budget, and there's your strategy. That's the marketing plan. Or, when I say marketing plan, I just mean say the theme. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with it. And then it's up to the artist to deliver and deliver value for money, because they have an obligation as well to their own livelihood and profession to do a good job. So the money comes in again the next year. That's how public funding works, So like you're saying the accountants, they have a role.
Oh, yeah.
But their role is to pass the buck. It's like, say, when I was in the hospital service, my job was just to let everyone else do theirs.
Yeah. But if the accountants start interfering with the arts, then we're in trouble.
Then you have a problem.
That's when you have to learn from.
That's when you have people thinking they know how to do everybody else's job. So,
Cork 2005 was a bit of a fiasco as well. Like, John Spillane was famous for saying, "Where's our culture?" Like, because there was a backlash amongst the local artists as well, that they were overlooked. Whereas I'm not saying that the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra wasn't worth every $500,000 that they cost or whatever.
Is this the one with the garden? Dermot Gavin's garden, Johnny?
I don't know about that now, Vanessa, but I'm just saying the misappropriation of funds in relation to Ireland and the arts. There's many case studies that they can learn from, but I would sincerely say that it is all about the art, and it's not all about the administrators and the people in the council. That actually took the Galway Arts Festival off. We're going back to the Saw Doctors there now. What's his name? The manager?
Pierce Doherty?
No.
Ollie Jennings.
Spokesperson of finance.
Ollie Jennings has got legendary stories how the Galway Arts Festival started. And it just got to a certain level, John, when it became a very viable arts festival. The council came in, swooped in and took it. And they see, all
right, Vanessa, Pierce Doherty is the guy in Galway who's an ex-member of the Saw Doctors who's now been brought in. He has the same name as the TD in Donegal. He's a really good, able guy, but what's really sad, I suppose, is, like, I wasn't there, but whenever it was announced 2 years ago, there were a couple of hundred people on the streets of Galway at like 11 o'clock on a Friday morning, delighted and celebrating. And now all we've had is just blanket negative coverage for months now.
Yeah.
And you'd like to see people just kind of focus. The artists do their jobs, put a plan in place for, stop all. I know the politicians are saying, or the city officials, like, stop all the negativity.
You see,
but there is squandering going on. People are unhappy with the direction they're getting from Galway 2020. So I know an awful waste of money. People are happy or hopeful that a change of personnel might make a big difference.
Yeah,
You're right about Peter Storey, though. He's a good guy. Soundhead as well.
Sorry, Johnny. Vanessa, do you want to get in there? Just
Well, I was just thinking there that yeah, you know, the lads were referring to the accountants taking over. You know, most people shouldn't know who the accountant is.
well, we know who.
Very good.
Well,
That's my view. Like obviously, the accountancy has all different areas, like auditors and external tax consultants and all this. But you know, in an organisation like Galway County Council or in the culture or the Arts Council, nobody should actually know who the accountant is. We're the people nobody should know.
Exactly. Our guy's in rehab, and best of luck to him if he's watching. He's. But,
he's not talking about me, people.
No, of course not. Neil, speaking of the arts, Neil, around this time, I know that both of us like to discuss movies and your choices.
We like to have lengthy conversations about, well, smoking cigars.
Can I also, sorry, briefly, Neil, just for a second there, just say hello to Stephen Garland, who has now joined us. Can you hear us now, Stephen? We still can't hear you. Oh, God. And you look great. No,
off and on.
On and off, on and off.
On and off, Scarlett.
Okay.
He's saying you're all fuckers.
Off and on.
Note who used bad language now.
Good Lord.
Take a screenshot now, John.
Well, we're not even. Well, we are past the threshold, I guess. So, okay, Neil. Sorry. Have you 3 movies, Neil, for this week?
I have a couple of movies this week, and they're not scary movies.
Stop putting the Christmas decorations up.
Terrible. There's 3 movies out, but I'm only going to talk briefly about a couple of them. There's a Disney movie out, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms. And if you're into all that kind of thing, it's great. It's live action, and it's a young girl. And guess what? She goes off to this mysterious place, and there's loads of wacky characters. It's got Helen Mirren in it and Morgan Freeman, so that's lovely. Do that for your midterm break with your kids.
My days of the Disney princess movies are over, and yours have just started, Neil. I can't wait to hear all about them.
Well, I don't think she's a princess in this one, but you know.
Oh,
that's Disney.
And
anyway,
that's on general.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So the other 2 films that are out that are for the grown-ups, there is Juliet Naked, which sounds like it's going to be something that it's not, and it stars Chris O'Dowd, as he's becoming more commonly known as, according to me, and Rose Byrne. And basically, they're in this kind of long-distance relationship, and she has an obsession with a rock star who she gets to make a friendship with, and then things go a bit awry for the couple. It's actually based on a Nick Hornby book, and I am a bit of a fan of Nick Hornby. Yeah. I like his writing style. But I haven't seen this. But I'm sure if you look at the other adaptations of Nick Hornby's work, they've been pretty solid. So maybe Jesse Peretz, who directed this, has done a good job. You can be the judge.
Okay.
I haven't seen it.
Sorry.
Go on. Sorry, John. You're gonna ask him.
No, I was thinking of Nick Hornby adaptations. The High Fidelity. I know that he wrote the screenplay for Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
About a Boy as well as one of his.
About a Boy, of course.
He also wrote
Fever Pitch.
What did you say, Johnny?
Fever Pitch.
Yeah,
Fever Pitch, which went to the America as well with Jerry. Oh, do you know your man that has the late night talk show now as well?
Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel. He did a version of it.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I remember the British version of it.
Yeah, Boston Red Sox instead of Arsenal.
Yeah. Mr. Darcy is in the Arsenal one.
Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a redhead in it. John.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. And there's a third movie. There's a third movie.
Third movie. Now this is the highbrow movie. This is a bit of a controversial movie, actually. It's called Peterloo, and it's directed by Mike Leigh. And I know you're a history buff in there, John, so already you know what we're talking about. But it focuses on the Peterloo massacre, hence the name, which happened in 1819 in Manchester, where basically the cavalry slaughtered hundreds of people at a demonstration. So it was kind of like a stake in the heart of democracy. So what's interesting about it is it's pretty no holds barred. There's some pretty graphic or scenes in it, some intense scenes in it that can be a hard watch, and it doesn't glamorize the dialogue either. The dialogue is pretty much on the nose from the source material. So hearing positive things about that.
Mike Lee he allows his cast to improvise, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I from what I believe at this, there was very little improvising on set on this one, but he does normally allow have an element of improvisation in his work.
Yeah, and so it's a low key to 3 movies. Tell me about the midterm, Neil, because I thought people were working this week, but they're not. They weren't really, like, you know.
No, I mean, people go away, don't they? It's kind of the last break before Christmas.
But it's a big one, isn't it? They really are. It's very quiet, and there's very little news on. Very little good movies, like as you've just demonstrated.
You always get a couple of
the older kids.
Yeah, you get a couple of kids movies that come out and that, so it's a big call for the movies.
It's all about Santi, John.
Getting ready for Santi now. It's not long now. But I did want to mention something else, because I was late to the game with this. There's a TV series on Netflix. It's been there for a little while. It's called The Haunting of Hill House. Now, if the title sounds familiar, it's one of many adaptations of the Haunting of Hill House book. There's been a number of movies. In fact, famously, the first ever movie, which was I think it was screened in the 50s. 50s or 60s. I should have really just double checked that. But anyway, the director, as a gimmick, had skeletons fly through the movie theaters during the screenings to scare the bejesus out of cinema goers. Now, and obviously we live in a different world now, but back then that would have been quite terrifying. But anyway, this is a Netflix series, and it's excellent. It is a horror TV series, but it's very well written. Very well put together. It follows, jumps between generations. Well, not generations, that's not true. It jumps between times with this family who lived in the house. The guy who played Elliot in E.T., he's in it.
Okay.
And it's very hard to not stare at his face. So I don't know what that's being. I can read into that what you want. There's a couple of... I had my notes. I closed them down. So I'm just stalling for a sec. Mike Flanagan created it. It's got Henry Thomas, who played Elliot, in it, and it also has Carla. I'm going to mess this up. Carla Gugino. She's been in. She's got that face that you recognize. She was in. Vanessa knows her because she was The Rock's wife. Vanessa hated her. She was The Rock's wife in not Skyscraper, San Andreas. Oh, yeah. And recently she's in.
Oh, she's a fabulous actress. She's on loads of TV shows.
Yeah, she's done a lot.
West Wing as well.
Yeah, she did the Stephen King, the other Netflix thing on Stephen King, or the Gerald's Game. She was in that. She was in Entourage as well. Yes, okay. Yeah. Anyway, it's well worth checking out. It's excellent, and I was late to the game with that one, but I've been glued to it. So yeah, that's
TV is better at the moment, Neil. What do you think for October and November than big screen?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of investment in TV shows, and obviously with Netflix on the scene and now Amazon Prime as well. There's a lot of good content being created there.
Neil, I'll just recap there in a second, but do you recommend the Freddie Mercury movie, the Bohemian Rhapsody?
It depends on what you're looking to get out of it. I mean, you know, it's very entertaining, but it kind of doesn't really go full on into the darker side of Freddie Mercury's life. And if that's what you want, you're going to be disappointed. But the actor who plays Freddie does an excellent job.
Does he?
And yeah, it's quite entertaining. But like I say, depends on what you want to get out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it might start off a genre. You know the way Black 47 might start off a whole new range of movies about the famine in Ireland and different regions and families. And sorry, am I doing something wrong there?
No, there's somebody. Background noise. I think that's what
somebody's doing the dishes.
Kieran, are you doing the dishes? We're on there. This is a live show, Kieran. This doesn't happen very fine, you can.
PG Carter's in the kitchen sessions.
So Neil, just to recap, Peterloo, which is the Mike Lee movie.
Yeah. Heavy going.
Juliet Naked.
Juliet Naked, the Nick Hornby, based on a Nick Hornby book, and then.
Did you say Naked?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, but it would be disappointing. Maybe it's an ironic title. It's maybe an ironic title. And then you have the Disney's Nutcracker and the Four Realms, which
And the
is
house. And the House on-
House on Haunted Hill is on Netflix. It's been there a little while. And
Would you
highly
recommend it, Neil?
Highly recommend it. Yeah,
Great.
quite
Who's in it
creepy as
again?
well. The fella who played Elliot, Henry Thomas. the fella
I
who
know,
played
yeah,
Elliot.
but anyone else?
Carla Gugino and the other chap. I can't remember the other.
He's been through the cast, Vanessa. Can I ask you, Neil, just on the presidential election, your thoughts on the verdict and the vote, the count, and everything?
Well, I mean, there was no point in asking for a recount now, in fairness, was there?
Yeah. I don't think you
yeah.
saw it coming, though. You were skeptical of Casey's vote.
Well, as in where he got, yeah, I was, but he didn't really get he didn't get anything that's worth talking about. I mean, he had the highest, the runners up, all right, but it's not much of a discussion point given how much Higgins landslided another 7 years. So
okay.
I look forward to seeing how the country will change on the back of our president.
Okay, I thought, Kieran, I'll try and get some provocative reaction from you. Did you feel the vote was a significant message, or as Neil says, just did you greet it with indifference?
I'm finding the media coverage of Casey kind of incredible, considering what's the message now? If you make what people are saying are racist comments about travellers, that your vote will go from 1% to 21%. I find it very sad. And last Saturday night, I came across the front page of the following day's Sunday Tribune, and they decided, or Sunday Times, they decided to put Casey on the front cover. And I got an angry message about an hour before you guys came on air from somebody forwarding on something that Peter Casey's going to be on the Late Late Show tomorrow night. So he's getting massive publicity out of it. It's kind of disappointing, to be honest. I mean, it's been a horrible week when you see what's happened in Brazil. I know some Brazilians in Galway, and I'm just back from America, so I can see what Donald Trump was doing over there. The facts don't seem to matter anymore. I think this Peter Casey guy didn't even know what the presidency means, what the role of the president is. He or she is supposed to be a president for everybody. We've had what I think are 3 good ones in a row. I missed Vanessa talking earlier because of my connection problems, guys, so I don't know if you were discussing this a bit, I think, when I went off.
Well, I was discussing not him himself, just the outcome of the vote.
Yes, particularly Sinn Féin's disappointing return.
I was more shocked at their failure.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Casey.
I think Sinn Féin voters just kind of said, like a lot of people, even Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael voters, Michael D is doing a good job. We don't even need this election. To be honest, and I've been writing about politics and everything for years. I knew nothing about Leah before she came into the race. They had a much more high-profile guy in 2011. Martin McGuinness had a massive national profile. I think Leah might have a profile in the South, but like people I know didn't know her, we didn't have time to get to know her. So I think it's been a massive own goal for
they were very late. They were very late in picking the candidate, I thought.
Yeah, and then to me, the Dragons are just ridiculous. And do you know what I mean? I looked at the ballot paper because I was at the Blog Awards. I only got back to Galway Friday evening and went straight out to shop and vote Friday. I was looking at the ballot paper going, what kind of a choice is this? And, I'm a Galway man. Michael D was my lecturer in sociology back in the 80s in NUIG.
Right.
I have volunteered and done a lot of work for Pieta House with The Darkness into Light. I was involved in that for 3 years. But Joan Freeman's views would be very conservative for my liking, and I had a lot of respect for the woman. I only found out a lot of her views through the campaign. I think she was badly bruised by it anyway. But I was looking at the choice going, what kind of choice is this? And, are people now using the presidency of the race as a kind of a PR stunt? I actually heard somebody saying that very honestly on the radio. Oh, these guys have got great publicity out of it. Is that what they're doing it for? But like the Casey phenomenon, I think the media are making the huge thing out of somebody that has been using what people consider to be racist language. And definitely the president of Ireland shouldn't be saying, these guys at the bottom are causing our problems. We need to look at these guys. Because, why isn't he talking about the people who caused the bailout and all that?
Sorry, Vanessa, you wanted to get in there.
If you don't mind, it was just you were mentioning about nobody knew who Leah was. I think that was what Sinn Féin's biggest mistake, was that they didn't announce their candidate until late September. And if you remember when Labour ran Mary Robinson, to be fair, Mary Robinson, nobody knew who Mary Robinson was, but outside of Sligo or Dublin. And when I say Dublin, I mean Dublin 6. You know, Dublin 2, 4, 6, and down the forecourts and the Senate. And I'll research this now, but I'll guess they announced Mary Robinson as their candidate in somewhere around January, February, or March of that year. Whereas the Sinn Féin held back on announcing Leah until late September. That was a big mistake. They triggered the election in May. That's when they should have announced their election.
Any idea why, though? Why it took them so long to pick?
Maybe they were hoping somebody else would run instead of Leah. I don't know.
Like Jerry Adams.
Senator, though, that was going to run.
Sorry, Dermot?
Wasn't there a senator? I don't know, the Crom.
No, I think they were
Crowell, Jared Crowell, yeah.
He was going to run if no one else was, I think.
Yeah, I think they were looking for him to run. I don't know how intense it got at that stage within Sinn Féin, but I do know that Pierce O'Doherty was the director of elections, and maybe Pierce, I've last time for you, not your economic policies. I think you're a shit speaker for finance, but I think that was. I don't think that's your strength, honey. You know, no.
Do you think the Poppy thing did anything?
No, I don't believe that for a second, because years ago when I was under another name, about 20 years ago, I promoted the idea of the green poppy, because there was nearly 30,000 Irish men and women died in World War I, and most of them joined the British Army to get a hot meal and a pair of shoes, every day. A hot meal every day. So I've always promoted the idea of wearing a green poppy, and that never kicked off any trouble or any stuff that you might hear out of the guy who blogs under Ollie Cromwell or any of those. The green poppy was always out there on sites that were busier. So that was never an issue. I don't believe it's the poppy at all. And I think the people that kind of object to wearing the poppy or kick it off I generally tend to be people that are in a position where they're being made to wear it, because other people whose politics they don't share or whose nationality they don't share or anything like that are wearing it. So they want to be on the opposite side.
Okay, one second. Can I just move to Dermot? Dermot, we haven't got a reaction from you regarding the election. You're kind of a millennial.
I don't know what age you think I am, John. I'm closer to 40.
Okay. Well, you're closer to the millennials. What are they thinking? What are they saying? What are the millennials saying?
I have no idea.
How did you feel about? Did you regard the Casey vote just as a kind of a protest vote rather than an anti-traveller thing or a racist?
I don't know much about Casey. I wasn't interested. Neil's points about Michael D, I agreed with completely. And I think the selection as well was awful. And the whole Gemma O'Doherty thing of it was as if we're only going to have these candidates and no one else is allowed in type of attitude.
Yeah.
And then the other party's not running anyone and everyone going from Michael D as well. Just, it was a bit of a farce.
I think it's fair to say that Michael D was diminished by the campaign somewhat and a little bit.
I think, John, I think most people felt that he wasn't entitled to this kind of coronation just to be automatically given another 7 years, and there should have been a contest, but people were just very disappointed by what was up against him. Now, I did run into a few politicians in Galway over the weekend, and more than us, they're analysing the votes, and they were very, very surprised at some of the high level of support that Casey got in some working class estates in Galway, and I presume that's the same across. I wasn't really paying that much attention to it.
Yeah,
we all knew Friday night it was all over. Michael D had walked it, but maybe this is not an Irish thing. It's kind of a global thing. This unfocused anger that is maybe been sent in the wrong direction, because is Trump really helping the working class of America? He tapped into an anger against the system or whatever, and I think Casey seemed to be trying to say anything that suited. I mean, his little rants earlier on before the traveller thing about Michael D and pandering to the Queen and this kind of stuff, like, he didn't really seem to even care what he said as long as he was being listened to, and that's what I found quite annoying. And we know what the president's job is, and it's not to be attacking travellers or whatever.
I know, Kieran, but I think a lot of the vote. Sorry, Vanessa.
Sorry, John. I don't think he set out to attack travellers. I think he picked on an element that he could get away with here in Ireland. If he'd picked on Jews, if he'd picked on a religion or a skin colour, that would travel outside Ireland. So I think he went for the travellers, because it was one thing that was in the news at the time, and he just went for it. People reacted to it, and that he's a businessman. That's what they do. They look to get traction. And he entered the race purely because there was no way he was letting Sean Gallagher or Gavin Duffy think they were bigger dragons than he was. He was 10 times more than the two of them put together on any day of the week.
Did he not play the Trump card that they played in Brazil, the same guy in Brazil and all over Europe, where it's going? The likes of Tommy Robinson and all these guys, give them loads of leverage. Hold on a second, Vanessa. You made your point. Just 1 second. John, you said it last Thursday that this was going to be a big story of the weekend, and you're right. So it would be disingenuous for us to ignore it now. It is the biggest story of the election. What I would like to come out of it is that Irish people have said that they're not happy, and this is why we should have a secret ballot, because that's the only way that they can feel that they're going to be heard. They did make a very strong statement. Nothing to do with Peter Casey. Take him out of it. It could have been anti-establishment. It could have been against travellers. I personally think a large percentage of it was against travellers. I think Ireland is as racist as every other country. So let's not put our heads in the sand and say we're not racist, because we have a very strong history of that. And also against people in direct provision. Okay, let's not forget that. And that's a big business in this country, that people still want to put their head in the sand about it. So what Michael D needs to do now, if he is, and I seen him, he got very upset when he was making his speech. You could see that he wasn't happy with the likes of Casey, chancing his arm, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And I'm just really disappointed that Irish people, knowing our history of oppression, would be so easily fooled. I can understand how other countries would be, but straight away, the Trump card was so fucking easy, and I can't believe we fell for it. But that's another story. But the thing what Michael D needs to do now, because he was visibly upset when he did make the speech, and he was annoyed with how Casey did get hit from 1% to 23%. So Michael D now needs to have this conversation that everyone is talking about. Michael D has done his stories, has done great speeches in Cuba and in Colombia and all that. But where is his speeches here? He's saying that let's put politics aside, because the president isn't a political tool, for want of a better term. But from a moral and ethical perspective, they can lead campaigns. So now we need to have an address that where travellers can come into the main and have a conversation. I was looking at Cutting Edge last night, and there was a traveller comedian on, and I forget his name, but he was absolutely brilliant.
It's not Beans, is it? Martin Beans Ward.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's part from County Galway.
From Galway, brilliant. And there's loads of people like him within the travelling community. You have to understand the travelling community is 33,000 people. So there is elements within that group that give it a bad name. There's elements within the settled group that gives it a bad name. But we need and I just want to hit home on this one. We have a population of 5 million. We can start a conversation on Friday evening from the Oireachtas or from the Áras with Michael D saying, I want to talk about this week. Can you talk to your family and friends and maybe have a general discussion online? Get rid of all the vile and all that bullshit. Ireland can do that because we are more or less of the same. The travellers are an ethnic minority. It's been proven, and they deserve recognition for that. So when Peter Casey says that he's the same as them, he's not, and he knows he's not. He's more the same as other people that don't pay their tax in this country, the ones that he didn't attack. So all I want out of this now is Michael D to carp diem and have a conversation and start with the travellers and settled community, because that's where it needs to start. And then we need to have other conversations around that, direct provision, homelessness. You know, that's what Michael D needs to do now. Lead as the first citizen that he was elected to do.
Neil, would you agree with that as a Michael D Higgins supporter, voter? Do you think he actually just...
Not a Michael D Higgins voter, no. Do I do, but it's not going to happen. No, and I'm not disagreeing with Johnny, but it's just not going to happen. We're going to get 7 years of nothing from the president, and I don't mean that to be funny, but you know, we'll get some wonderful speeches, we'll get very wonderful photograph opportunities, but I don't. That's all the president really does, unless Mary Robinson. She was great.
Can I ask Kieran, there was one aspect of the coverage that really surprised me, that President Higgins was renting out a house in Galway to six mature students for $2,000 a month. Where do you know that this house? Where
I only read the article like you did. His actual house is only about 5-minute walk from where I live on the west side of Galway City. Anyway, the home house where his family's house. But no, I only read what you read.
But so this isn't actually the family home. This is another house that he owns.
Yes, and he rents it out, and I think he bought it during the presidency as well as an investment. So,
so he rents it out to 6 mature students, 6 people living in this one house. Is it like a semi?
It helps with the old champagne socialist image, anyway, doesn't it? But
and like, would he come around in the chauffeur and pick up the
No,
rent?
I don't think Michael D comes in person to collect the rent. But I mean, he's very down to earth. I have met him walking the prom in Salt Hill, but I haven't heard stories of him going, "Hey, where's the rent this month?" You know, I'll pop up. He comes back to Galway United a lot on a Friday night if he's hasn't got a big engagement. So maybe I don't think he pops up to Newcastle on the way down to the soccer match in Terryland.
It'd be one house he wouldn't get evicted from, I don't think, during his tenure anyway. The next 7 years.
There was a great cartoon image of him getting up onto the plane, and he goes, "Anyone want anything from the chipper?"
But Kieran, he used to teach you, and like he's a Galway man and all that. And
so I respect, because in the 80s and early 90s, he taught us about South African apartheid and the history of, you know, the stuff that actually people have found out since about what the church was doing in Ireland, how women were being treated in Ireland. He was shocking halls full of undergraduates with the stuff that he had researched, and he was very good and knew his stuff. So in Galway, he has walked the walk, and he's hugely popular here because
he's popular with the undergraduates. But now he's got 6 postgraduates in this house. Can you tell me? Can you give me the dimensions of this?
It's just a regular semi-detached in a nice area. I'm not sure if it's detached or semi, but it's within 5-10 minute walk of the university. So he knew where he was buying, and as you know, we have a rental crisis in Galway to match Dublin, so he'll never have a problem getting tenants.
No, he won't. And also, you can never have enough pensions, I guess, but he does seem to have a few, and he does seem to be making a ton of money.
Yeah, well, the thing is, John, I probably do think he should have retired. He's had a good 7 years, and I've been quite proud of him, and I've seen him speak, as Johnny said, internationally. But when I look at when I walked into the polling booth and looked at what was up against him this time, I was like, oh my God, you know, it's the arrogance of those dragons that gets me. They're complete. It's either ignorance or not giving a damn about what the actual presidency is about, you know?
I think, sorry if you don't mind, I think Gavin Duffy and Sean Gallagher were put into the race by
pawns
in the game, just to chip away, just to disrupt the Sinn Féin vote.
I heard that said during the campaign. I don't know.
Peter Casey then just said, "I'm not letting them away with that. These are freaking morons." You know what I mean? And the mindset we've seen of Peter Casey would demonstrate that now. And I would say to Johnny, I actually don't think that vote demonstrates a level of racism or intolerance in this.
No, not all of it anyway.
And I would think most people in Ireland don't agree with direct provision at all.
Well, you know, of course they don't. No one agrees with
people who own it. Vanessa,
I like to think we're more tolerant than that.
Oh God, we're not tolerant, Vanessa. We're aware of all this, and we're doing nothing about it. So we're intolerant.
Okay,
we're
Johnny,
the opposite of tolerance.
When you
Johnny,
say
hang on one
we,
second.
who do you mean?
I can I just hit this home again, please? We're a population of 5 million. That's less than Greater Manchester, less than the suburbs of Birmingham City. Like, this is a whole country.
I know, Johnny.
The proportion of representation we have, we should be very easily able to, considering our recent history, to come together and not have this crazy notion that goes on in America, that goes on in Britain, that goes on in all these other big countries. We shouldn't have that racial hang-up, and we do. And until we acknowledge that we do, we're caught ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, I think as well, I agree with Johnny. I think we always say to each other, aren't we lucky in Ireland we don't have a far right? But people are, giving this guy so much publicity now.
Exactly. And there's elections coming up as well next year. There'll be a lot of people.
I want to thank them because,
sorry,
tomorrow night is for the pub for me, I think, because I'm not going to sit in and watch them on the Late Show. The weekend is too short. You know what I mean? Michael D won the election in the end, not Peter Casey.
Well, Mary Robinson's on tomorrow night as well. Sorry, Vanessa.
Sorry, I've just said most people just watch the late once a year anyway, so it's not something I don't think he's going to influence anyone on the late tomorrow night. And let's be honest, the late is lazy programming anyway. They don't reach out to people to bring them in. It's obviously because if you look at the couch week after week, John and Kieran and Johnny and Olga and Neil, like they're just literally people that they're spotting in the car park.
Yeah, well, but every time I turned on Radio 1 last weekend, I said, I wonder is Peter Casey on now? And he always seemed to be, whatever random time, Saturday and Sunday.
I saw some. Actually, one of the best council pitches.
Vanessa, can I just say hello to Olga because she's just arrived in and she's been.
I was waving at Olga.
Yeah, how's it going?
Hello, Olga.
How are we?
Olga's been
opening the quota.
Yeah, opening the quota. Oh God. Affirmative action. Hello, Olga. Actually, I may go to do the papers, finish off the papers here. Brackets, go to the bathroom. So if you just excuse me for a second. Can I just leave it on this note? Brian Cowan owns student apartments in Leeds, didn't he, Kieran or Vanessa?
Lowry did. Lowry was definitely involved in.
No, Brian Cowan owned a couple. Like,
see, they have so much disposable income, John. What are they going to do with it?
Well, but the point is, like,
charity.
Kieran, yeah, I don't think he should be renting out to six mature students for $2,000 a month. I don't actually. I think he should give them rent free.
There's some talk about John morals and ethics. Can we have a conversation about that?
Pay my mortgage.
Well, he doesn't. I mean,
there are a lot of TDs and senators who are landlords. I mean, okay, he'd probably say, why can't the president be?
Without going off on a tangent about it.
That gives you a measure of the disposable income they have, that they're able to invest in that while they are still working.
Well, I think Brian Cowan lost his shirt on those apartments.
These people are still PAYE employees, and if they have this much disposable income, I know people would say that Kate O'Connell owns 6 properties, but she's self-employed. She has a pharmacy business that she has developed herself. You know, she didn't buy one, she didn't inherit it, she developed it herself. But if you look at Brian,
she developed her job in the HPRA or the Health Committee as well.
She's a pharmacist and she set up herself. Okay, she didn't inherit it; it wasn't handed to her, so she's done it herself. Whereas if you look at Brian Cowan, who was a TD at a very, very young age,
23,
like he never really practiced as a solicitor. He didn't set up his own firm, or he didn't serve his years in Arthur Cox's as a junior.
No.
You know,
it's a family firm, yeah.
If you think about it, right, this gives you a measure of the disposable income they have every month, that they're able to accumulate these huge deposits for investment properties.
Yeah.
So now you have an idea of, we are actually paying our public representatives way over what is a reasonable living wage. Now, I'm not saying they should be, you know, on the basic average industrial wage, because they do take on a lot.
But why not?
But it just gives you an idea that the pay is excessive.
Of course.
But they give it to themselves, Vanessa. They only give themselves. I've recently. They're actually giving it to themselves.
I don't want to get stuck into this just for a second. Dermot, we haven't been to the mosh pit. It's been so troll infested of late.
It's not nice.
Are there any questions? Nothing other than that guy trolling, is it? Anything of...
Not that I've been following, John. I'd have to go. But if I could say, like Michael D. Higgins was saying a lot of, I can't do this, I can't do that, I need permission to do this, I've no opinion. He's getting paid more than the US president, isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's he doing that's so much worth this that, well, Trump is...
Well, the one thing I'd say, lads, is I'd rather have Michael D in the RS than a royal family like they have in Britain, to be honest with you. At least he did get a vote, you know what I mean? And I think Mary McAleese and Mary Robinson, I think, did a good job. The role of the president is not to be kind of changing day-to-day politics anyway, and it never was. It was kind of a retirement home for old
I think Mary
Taoiseach and stuff.
Kieran, would you not like a good old Irish royal wedding though? All the same, I mean, the royals are great for their weddings and the babies.
I think he does.
You can read enough about them in our media anyway. The British royals. You know what I mean?
I think he's.
Was it Brian O'Driscoll and Amy? That's an Irish royal wedding.
I think he does.
Vanessa, your taxes aren't paying for Brian and Amy.
Yeah.
One of them's on RTE every second week, so they are.
Can I just want to welcome Olga. Oh, by the way, a couple of things happened. Hello, Olga. A couple of things happened this week. Sergeant Maurice McCabe announced that he was going to retire from the force, from An Garda Síochána, and former Garda Commissioner Noreen O'Sullivan was appointed Assistant Secretary of
General of Safety and Security.
Assistant General of Safety and Security at the United Nations.
UN.
This is a former Commissioner O'Sullivan who was forced to resign from the force, but she claims she was vindicated in the Charlton report, or exonerated, and are completely vindicated, as RT would say. So, what are your feelings on developments in the week, Olga, with Maurice and Noreen?
Well, I think Maurice, my understanding is he's very, very happy. He feels free, which is great for him. After such a long, impossible journey, that many people wouldn't have been able to have made, I don't think, to the end. But so I think he's very happy. In regards to Noreen O'Sullivan, safety and security, I still can't kind of get my head around how she received a rape referral and can't remember seeing it, and yet would have received that in May 2014, and then would have gone to a commission of investigation a year later, and said in her own evidence that she wanted everything to go before the commission as a means to find out the truth. So that's why the kind of Miss D allegation, while it was never, ever, ever put to Maurice McCabe at the commission, and nobody ever said it was, even though a term of reference was set up to ask if that had happened, which made Charlton ask Francis Fitzgerald why this happened, and Francis Fitzgerald couldn't answer. The fact that Noreen O'Sullivan still didn't consider this fake rape allegation, like if she says that she can't remember seeing it, but she was asked by Michael McDougall in her evidence if she was ever correct, if it was ever corrected, and she said no. But the question then is, well, then her frame of reference in regards to Maurice McCabe must have been he had been accused of rape. Yeah. So it does beg a belief then that she went to the commission investigation, the O'Higgins commission investigation, and this wasn't something that was spoken about or raised or discussed in any way with her counsel, but these things weren't asked at the tribunal, because Charlton was really only tasked with finding out whether a false allegation had been used against him at the tribunal. And because Michael McDougall had already said, we never said this, it was kind of cancelled out. So her vindication in that respect was always coming. It wasn't a surprise because... No. And then if you think of Dave Taylor's claims that she was, she had the knowledge of the smear campaign in regards to Martin Callanan and himself. I mean, Dave Taylor himself made a load of allegations and then retracted them. and he made them in the High Court and then retracted them. And phones were missing. You know, and obviously he himself was under investigation at the time, and this is so Charlton has said this is the reason that he made all these allegations. And just as an aside, that in and of itself, the investigation into himself, into Taylor, about his contacts with media, like that even begs the question more about how we really should have a bigger conversation about guards and media, because it was that conversation, or it was that investigation that prompted him to make up all these lies we're told, but that's kind of lost in the mix of everything, you know?
Yeah.
Given the fact that any newspaper that you pick up any given day, there are leaks that don't come from the Garda press office. So
absolutely,
there's a wider conversation.
Charlton said it himself. It's improbable that you did not have an inkling, at the very least, about Callanan's views. By the way, I just wanted to.
No, exactly. So it does seem, it just doesn't all add up. The dots kind of, it just gets all very muddled in 2014, 2015. Like Maurice McCabe did not know about this fake rape allegation, and all these guards did, and all these guards sent it up the line.
Yeah.
But we're told that this was no part of this smear campaign. The smear campaign only happened in January, February, March, April type of time, January 2014, when Martin Callanan said certain things to certain politicians, etc. So it's just kind of, it's extraordinary that you had a smear campaign that lasted several months, and then you had a rape allegation
created
that spanned that time and then went on, but we're supposed to just discount that.
Yeah.
And he himself didn't even find that as a coincidence.
No. So yeah, go on.
So in regards to Noreen O'Sullivan, you know, so I don't want to be repeating myself or boring people, but like, she got a fake rape allegation, and in fact, her private secretary on her behalf had written to Assistant Commissioner Kieran Kenny asking about an update on that.
Yeah.
And in his letters, he said, I'm doing this on behalf of the Commissioner.
Mm.
So it's absolutely improbable that she didn't, we're supposed to believe that she just forgot this serious allegation, then went into Commission investigation, the O'Higgins Commission investigation, and this wasn't at all discussed. It just seems, you know.
Yeah, do you get, I mean,
Kieran Kenny said absolutely categorically that he never told her, he never corrected it, and, you know, so this file just sat there until February 2017.
Yeah, I mean, it seems
so. So in terms of safety and security, which is her UN role, I mean, what about the safety and security of Maurice McCabe at that time? You know.
Yeah.
You know, considering a rape allegation is sitting there, you know, of one of your employees. So.
Well, there is something very strange. I mean, this is obviously a government sponsored appointment. It kind of reminds me, although there's no real parallels at all, but it reminds me of Kevin Cardiff being appointed to the European Court of Auditors after the financial crash in Ireland. He was
huge error in the accounts
at the Department of Finance, but I mean,
and then he found it at the back of the couch or something, didn't he?
No, I think
there was money. There was like,
he'd get a hard time, but
I was teaching at the time, actually.
Right.
And I got a copy of the trial balance, and you could see it didn't balance, and you're trying to figure out, Jesus, how does he get this gig?
Well,
and I've been here for 25 quid an hour teaching.
I think,
an example of that. Any kids watching? This is how you get ahead.
Well,
this is the
they walk the talk. They know what they're doing. It's like the presidential pitches. They know exactly what points to hit and how to do it and the timing. And it's the same in the interviews. They get awarded points, and whoever's on the points, it doesn't matter whether the interviewers like the people or not, or whether they'll fit or not, as long as the points are all hit. And there's no real decision making where somebody takes a risk on a good candidate or a good option.
I have to say
that she's been disgraced from this tribunal, and she's been rewarded for such a top UN security job. And Ireland are looking to get UN Security Council. So she's going to be leading or in part of that. So our credibility once again on the international stage, whatever about the corruption within our own country, like this is just going to be a story that's going to follow her around as
But I
much.
don't think, yeah, okay, Johnny. Yeah, I actually, Kieran, I don't think I could have thought less of the UN than I did up till Wednesday or whatever.
Well, I suppose. The only thing is, Noreen didn't come out as badly out of the Charlton thing as her predecessor and the press officer. That was made very clear. Actually, I got a laugh today out of Waterford Whispers News. I'll have to read the headline. I think they put it up today. Noreen O'Sullivan hired by UN after they forgot to check references. I thought sometimes they can catch things very well in a headline. Forgot to check the references.
Well, the sad thing about it is that the references would have been from Leo and stuff, and it would have been glowing, presumably. I mean, it was a government, but this is government-sponsored appointment. This is what concerns me a little bit about this, and Olga, we kind of touched on it the last few days. Everything seems very choreographed, you know. Like this appointment obviously was made months ago. These UN appointments are not made on a Friday night and then announced on Monday. So she must have known, or they must have known, that she was going to be cleared in this report, in the Charlton report. Otherwise, they would never have considered her, presumably.
Well, yeah, but that goes back to what I was saying about the term of reference, because the term of reference, like particularly pertaining to her, was so
precluded any.
Well, I mean,
fines,
McDougall himself, like Maurice McCabe's, senior counsel, immediately said, no one ever said this. No one ever alleged that this was put to him at the Higgins Commission investigation. But like the point that McDougall made was that they were arguing that the Miss D allegation was dragged in to cause collateral damage, to embarrass Maurice, to make him look bad, in the context of when they made the Chief State Solicitor's letter, because this was all pertaining to the Miss D investigation and the DPP's directions. Now, that letter was born out of a row, and the letter was full of mistakes, and Charlton wasn't tasked with finding out the progeny of that letter. So, he just put it down to silly mistakes, but they were called grotesque or gross falsehoods by McDougall, but they were called factual inaccuracies by Noreen O'Sullivan. At the end of the day, Charlton just said, I don't have to decide how this happened. Yeah. So even though Noreen O'Sullivan and the guards who would have been, spoken about in that letter, they all had the same counsel. But I think Charlton did, at the end of the day, kind of say, the mistakes were born out of whatever meetings that these certain Gardaí had with the council. But he just put it down to silly mistakes, and that there was no plan to do down Maurice McCabe at the commission. But McDougall's point was that this was a means to bring in the Miss D allegation kind of through the back door to cause collateral damage. But like I said, Charlton didn't have to decide.
Okay, well, thanks, Olga, for that. It's all.
Thanks, Olga.
Yeah.
Can I just ask something there? That a few months ago, Noreen O'Sullivan was doing whatever she could to make sure that there was nothing being said about her through the media and online. Am I reading that right?
Well, I think she was taking she has taken legal action against the Examiner and a few other news.
And RTE, I think. Maybe.
Info on her from RTE, I think.
Okay.
What's that, Dermot?
Didn't she request all information?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So the RTE under whatever the new thing is they brought in, the GW.
The GDPR, yeah.
GDPR.
But if she's kind of
sorry, actually, I don't think she is suing RT. I think I got that wrong. Sorry, I think it's just the Examiner.
But she's got a troll of RT's emails and stuff.
That's right. Yeah, that's what she's seeking. Pretty much like what I suppose they were doing for Maurice and maybe Keith Harrison through the Department of Justice.
Okay.
But like in relation to just at that time, looking back at now, why was she doing it? Maybe now that we know that she has been headhunted for this position and the references are still in the post, but also is what she was actually, the announcement was unbelievable that Sergeant Maurice McCabe had, like he wasn't even given that day to say, after all these years of trying, now I'm a free man almost. They almost had to say, you think you got away with it, but look at our woman.
Yeah.
No, it's almost,
But I have to, I mean,
there's your Irish justice for you.
Yeah, that's profoundly sad, really, when you put it like that. I also think we have to look at.
And then a bit of sadism as well, there, I reckon.
What's amazing, and thanks be to God, Maurice McCabe obviously has amazing mental health, because to go through those kind of vicious, rotten smears, and we all know the way rumors work, and if you get a rumor like that from somebody who's very senior or high up, you remember that 6 months later or a year later or whatever, it goes round your head and you say, did you hear about that fella? You know what I mean? That's the rotten way that these things work. So thanks be to God, he was strong enough to survive all that.
And we said that, didn't we? About him having the herewithal to see it through, and you know the having, you know, remember recording the conversations.
The world.
You know,
and just to say one other thing as well that kind of stands out is that the fake rape allegation was created by mistake, which everyone accepts, in August 2013, and it was sent to Tusla. And then in January 2014, which is when the smear campaign happened and Charlton found, in January 2014, Charlton accepted the evidence of John McGuinness and Seamus McCarthy when they said that Martin Callan basically led them to believe that Morris was being investigated. So it was like a current live investigation.
Yeah.
Not that he had a previous allegation and that it was, you know, this was alive. So
active,
anyone, so it's just, obviously because of that fake rape allegation that went into circulation, you have to ask yourself, well, what was he talking about there? You know, like, was he referring to something? But again, these questions weren't asked.
No, exactly, Olga. And if you're a senior crime journalist and you've heard something like that, you're going, I'm not touching this guy with a 10-foot barge pole, because in a year, 2 years, 5 years, this will all erupt, and they'll be saying you were an idiot. You listened to that whistleblower. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also around the same time, we know that there was evidence given by the DCU professor Colin Kenny and journalist.
Yeah.
And he made an allegation about two journalists telling him again that Morris was being investigated, like a current live investigation, but
it wasn't dead from a decade ago.
Exactly. But it has to be said that these two journalists completely categorically denied it. And Charlton, it was one of these
things that he didn't adjudicate on. No,
he didn't adjudicate on. And I can understand why he didn't, because the term of reference didn't ask him to, because it was about the terms of reference asked him to find out about Gardaí and journalists, not about conversations between journalists. And so he didn't. But it was just I think the fact that there were people, he accepted evidence about what Martin Callan apparently told John McGuinness and Seamus McCarthy. He accepted the evidence that they were under the impression that it was a live investigation. So you do have to ask yourself, well.
Yeah.
You know.
A lot of questionable stuff. I beg your pardon, Neil. The papers, I've posted the papers. I'm not sure if you can share the screen, or Dermot can share the screen. I'm not too sure.
Olga, can I ask, have you spoken to Morris since he's submitted his retirement, or even after the meeting with Drew Harris?
I have, yeah. I have.
And how is he? Is he happy with the decision? Because sometimes you make a decision and you have regrets, or sometimes you make a decision and there's a load lifted.
Yeah, no, he's very happy.
I don't want to pry, but
no, he's very happy. And like I said, he just feels very free, and
can we get him on the show?
Just wants to get on with his life.
I want to know what his favourite Eurovision song is. We know everything else about the man, so I think it's only fair we should.
I want to know, does he know what kind of phone does Noreen Sullivan prefer, Android or iPhone? I was thinking of getting her one to congratulate her for her new position.
I wouldn't give it to her. She'd lose it, Johnny. Why would you spend her on something she'd lose?
Don't worry, I'd insure it for her.
But you were talking about her getting these jobs. Can I just put something out there? A devil's advocate, folks. It's just maybe nobody else applied for the post. Because that
think so? A senior UN job, plenty of travel,
no wages.
You'd be very surprised, folks, who gets past the vetting to just even make the shortlist.
I think we are very surprised, and we still don't. We're still more surprised after this. Has Broadsheet been asked to take part in the two-parter of Cathy Hannon's on the 12th and 13th of November? That seems to be a fairly comprehensive story about Maurice McCabe.
No, we're still waiting. We're still waiting for the.
No, I'm sure he wouldn't be.
Why wouldn't he be? I know if he passed over with with all the awards.
But it's about Morris. So
Casey Hannon did right by Morris, didn't she? Though.
Yeah, Katie did. Or her station didn't, but she did.
Casey Hannon did right by Morris, and
she did. Her station
absolutely.
didn't, though. But that's
Absolutely.
yeah. Her station really didn't.
But you know those kind of documentaries
Her employer,
has a lot of talking heads, so you have people from all.
And Philip
walks of
Boucher
the-
Hayes also of RT did it.
And Philip Boucher Hayes.
Philip Boucher Hayes was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He did a good. It just
So
on,
Paul Williams shows up like you won't be going scratching.
Yeah,
your
but
head
he's
or
not an
anything.
RT employee, Johnny.
No, I know that. But you're missing the point. What I'm saying is this is going on for 2 nights. So what I'm saying, within all that, the tribunal is going to be a big part of that story. So as Broadsheet were called out by Mick Wallace in the Dáil, you'd think that if RT wanted talking heads, they might be looking at Broadsheet. That's why I was only asking.
I think Johnny. I think it'll be just straight with the source of the.
Yeah, I think
But that's why
there's no point in prejudging it, Johnny, until you've seen
Yeah.
it. I mean, they might do a really good job on it. I think they
I'm
will
trying
do
to see
right.
it.
No, listen, I'm sure they will. No, Cassie Hannon is there. She did a very good job of Morris McCabe.
Yeah.
She's credible. But what I'm saying is, I'd hate to see Paul Williams popping up with an opinion, for example.
well, I tell you,
Well, why don't you watch it first and then criticise it?
we'll watch it. We'll have a joint.
We will watch it. Well, if any RT executives are looking, lads, don't put Paul Williams on and make it look like Eaton's again. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I tell you, if Morris does the Dahi today with Dahi and you're one before us, that's it. I won't say this, but he might come on. He might come on the telly one day. Now that he's retired.
Yeah, well, we want to know what your favorite Eurovision song is.
Well, I think our country owes him a huge favour, but unfortunately, the whole scenario is going to scare other people off from ever,
Yeah, but
from
at the same
sticking the
time,
necks out
Ciarán,
like he did.
No, I don't think so.
I think I think we all know about his work and what he went through. I think it's time we owe learning about the man himself.
Yeah, well, hopefully we will in that documentary.
Look what he's
Focus on
done for
him
us.
and his family. Yeah.
Well, just having a look at tomorrow's papers. Dermot, sorry, could you go down straight to the Times had an interesting story about the Pope's visit.
Is he coming back?
No, Johnny, you have to pay for it.
Oh, look, sorry, guys. The first thing that comes up on the main board is staying in tomorrow there. And is that not the worst suit you've ever seen?
Oh, the Peter Casey suit, the tonic suit.
Jesus, you think he'd be able to get a tailor in? Jesus.
Echoes of Taka, kind of late 60s Fianna Fáil. Just on the.
Sorry.
What were you asking?
Dermot, if you can just go down to the the Times. I didn't stick it in. Hang on 1 second.
Just to say, while you're doing that, there's a story on the front page of the Examiner by Caroline O'Doherty, and it's about the man who was jailed today for 14 years for that horrendous rape over 21 hours, in Sandymount there, the old glass bottle site.
Had it for a day.
Yeah, but had shades of one of the complaints that Morris McCabe had made actually in relation to, because now he's been sentenced. They're reporting on his previous but Caroline O'Doherty's story in the Examiner is talking about there's questions now for different state agencies because he would have broken bail conditions, but he wasn't brought in. And there was efforts to kind of maybe kind of put him into hospital because of mental health issues, but it just didn't happen. And a guard, I think, apparently tried, but it didn't happen and stuff. So, but Caroline Doherty's story is basically saying there's questions now for the state agencies, but there's echoes to that of the story or the situation involving, I can't remember her name, this is awful, the woman in Cavan Monaghan there who was attacked and the guy was let out and then he went on, he murdered someone.
Remember? Lucifer?
No. Lucia's son was.
Sorry, I'm mixing.
She was a taxi driver.
Sorry, the taxi driver. Thanks, Johnny. I'm mortified. I can't remember her name.
No.
But it's just echoes of that. Actually, that's
Okay.
reading it.
And if you probably identifies 23. Oh yeah, if you just go down. If you actually, Dermot, if you refresh your page, I put the Times Irish edition. It should be at the top. Where the Examiner was there.
Olga, was it Sylvia Roach Kelly?
Thanks a million.
Yes.
I was just looking that up. Mary Lynch was the taxi driver, yeah. And she was
She got an off hiding, didn't she?
Yeah, by this guy while he was a fair, basically that guy went on to kill Sylvia Roach Kelly.
And didn't he try to abduct
A child.
A child.
right.
Yeah. So
Just on the Times Ireland edition, Dermot, if you can pull that up.
Yeah.
RTE blamed for dismal turnout at pubs class.
At least they're not blaming us, John.
Well, I don't know why they're blaming RTE, but news reports warned worshippers of Long Walk. Yeah, there was a lot of that kind of walk again, kind of,
like more.
But it's interesting that they wrote so the communications manager for the World Meeting of Families, like they wrote to the Department of the Taoiseach to complain 5 days beforehand that there was too much coverage of the walk, and then they wrote to them afterwards to complain, to blame them, because there's mention in, I think it's Catherine Sands' report, about one RTE report where they talked to somebody who, like a bus hire person, and she was like, no, we're not going because it's completely kind of chaotic and there's nowhere to park, and we'll get to park so far away. And I think I actually remember here, I think it was Liveline.
I think Liveline did a whole week of bus drivers complaining that they'd have to walk. Their poor passengers would have to walk so far, and they were all elderly. But it was all about that for the whole week beforehand.
Do you know, interestingly, this week, Joe Duffy was on about the shutdown for, the marathon. And the same areas were shut down as they were for the Pope. You couldn't get access to, certainly for James's here or the Coombe or Our Ladies.
Okay.
There was it was shut down, and there was no.
The funny thing about all that sorry, Vanessa. I think the funny thing about that is it all became like Ireland's version of Trump's graduate or inauguration photos. The rowing over how many people were in Phoenix Park, and people who wanted had pictures of the whole place empty, and other ones were, shift the camera to suit your narrative. It became an incredible story.
Yeah,
as if it was a matter of life and death. How many were there? How many weren't? And
it was like Back to the Future. Every photo you've seen, there was more people disappearing.
Yeah, but I think the media, sir, because our market is so small, the media, the stronger holds within the media are able to sway the public opinion so easily.
Of course, yeah.
Well,
but it's funny actually, Vanessa, because in the same piece, sorry, John, and I'll stop. But in the same piece, they also complained about the coverage that they did, because it was a case of they gave it too much coverage, because that gave people reason to stay at home, to watch at home. So really, Archie couldn't win, I don't think, in this.
Oh,
but they're lucky to blame everybody. They're not willing to accept nobody gave a shite. Nobody wanted to go and see the Pope. It was a bloody nuisance, folks.
Did you hear Marion Finucane there last Saturday? And I just turned it on, and I was up all most of Friday night. I went to see Bohemians, actually, and the Bob Marley vibe. Dundalk fans and the Gypsy fans, Bows, were singing in unison.
The t-shirts.
No, they didn't. No, the t-shirts hadn't printed yet.
Oh, sorry.
But they are sold out, apparently.
Oh,
so they're inundated with but the Dundalk fans and Bows fans were singing in unison, One Love, Bob Marley. So that's where it was Friday night. But when I woke up on Saturday, Marion Finucane said something like, in relation, you voted for this. And next thing, all of a sudden, bong, D'Angelis. I couldn't believe it. I says, what? They voted for this? What? Check the mark on it. It's unbelievable. I think she was trying to scare people like me. But anyway, the like I said, that went through 70-odd%. So
yeah, well,
consider what happened in Pakistan this week as well,
Okay, John.
It only takes a few hundred. That's a very important thing, John, that we did this week, apart from the presidency. And we're talking about the church and stuff.
It was kind of silly that it went in anyway as a law, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was good to see it being taken out.
Okay. Just on the epileptic, Billy Caldwell, the cannabis oil boy, he's in Northern Ireland. And in Northern Ireland now, you can get cannabis oil prescribed. But of course, poor Billy can't get his for some reason, so he's got to go to Canada. And
really,
that's on the time.
It's a supply thing,
or something, yeah.
And an organisation as big as HSE, and it's the same with the NHS is even bigger again. That when you organise purchases and there's a long tender process and supply and.
Okay, well, I think
it'll happen. It'll be here shortly. Promise you, lads. It'll be legal here within 5 years max.
5 years? We think we're within 5 months. The campaign is very strong. Sure, look at Kenny and Vera. They're all there. John, you put up the thing. It's momentum now.
Yeah, but it'll be money, Johnny. It'll be agri money. It'll be about money.
Okay.
It will be about money in the end.
To be continued.
About lives.
To be continued. Neil, you're putting the Christmas decorations up a little early, no?
Well, I just figure
Neil
let's
loves
get
Christmas.
it out of the way, get the decorations up, and we'll have something to moan about now for the next couple of months until it happens.
Okay. And it's Sadie's second Christmas, isn't it?
Second, yeah.
And the second, are we having the juniors again this year, Neil? Or are we going to The Hague?
Okay. On that,
I heard we're going to an embassy in Russia.
in the Saudi Arabian embassy. Okay.
The Saudi Arabia,
John, can I just say Sean apologised for getting cut off and he'd like to come on again.
Brilliant. Well, it was lovely to talk to Sean, and the documentary is a Northern Soul film by Sean McAllister, and it's brilliant. Big thank you to Kieran Tierney in Galway. Kieran,
Thank you, guys. Nice to talk to you again.
congratulations.
Okay,
blogger.
good night.
Blogger.
Thanks very much.
Congrats, Kieran.
And you guys have been great too for helping Peter Mulrine and the families. I know that, and they really appreciate it as well. So they didn't always feel they were getting a fair whack, with the media, but it's making a big difference. So, it's good. When you get a blogging award like that, it makes kind of...
It shows us. Is it there? Have you got it handy there?
Have you got it there?
Have you got it handy there?
Oh, give me a second.
Here, can I get my one for everyone in the audience?
You should maybe mention
Actually, it's after midnight, so I can say this now. Some of my friends have said that it's actually quite a big phallic symbol.
Oh my goodness!
It is actually, isn't it? I mean,
and a friend of mine.
Sorry, I can't see it. Put it up. To
maybe you shouldn't, Vanessa.
Is it dirty?
Well,
it's a snail, is it?
It's got a kind of a funny thing sticking out of it. So,
oh, it is a giant Mickey, all right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. A friend of mine who's divorced keeps telling me that she wants to borrow it, and I don't know why. So, yeah, it's lovely to get the recognition.
Fantastic. Well, Kieran, well deserved.
I win nothing.
Thanks, guys.
Sadly, we didn't get nominated.
All right. Good night. I'm going to go too.
Good night, Kieran. Sadly, we didn't get nominated. Although there were only 4,000 nominees this year. So.
Really? I mean, not even a mention, John.
Well, there was 2,000 nominees, so maybe maybe next year,
I was just going to say, maybe just to mention, Alison O'Reilly and Anna Carrigan were
please.
They were just got awards there at the Phil in Trinity this week as well for her work. Like obviously, Alison wrote a book based on Anna Carrigan's story, and her mother, My Name is Bridget. So
I think she's got something tomorrow night in the Phil. Is it tomorrow night? I know I can't go because I have a speaking engagement somewhere else, but I'd love to go, but unfortunately I can't.
Oh, because tomorrow night, okay, because it was on Tuesday.
Oh, was it this week?
It was an award, there was a panel, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
You were at the event.
Yeah.
And
just that I'd mention it, just given that, it's great that it's been recognised in that way, the story and everything. And Johnny, I was thinking of you because Anna Carrigan made an appeal to the young people who were there, the students, saying that, it's up to you guys to kind of keep the story alive. And that's exactly kind of what you were calling for. And Alison O'Reilly was saying that she actually credits the young people for bringing the story to the kind of level that it got, because she said that those people who, once it went on Mail Online, once it got online, the sharing and everything by younger people, because they were so horrified. Anyway.
Brilliant. Thanks, Johnny, and thanks, Dermot.
Yes, John.
You're behind the Times Ireland edition. Thank you very much for helping out in Mission Control.
No problem.
We won't see you, will we? Or
I can't figure out the controls.
Oh, okay. Well, but you've been brilliant all night at Mission Control up to this point.
Up to now. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Dermot. Anyway, and we'll hopefully see you next week. And Neil Curran, thank you. Brilliantly produced show as ever. Flawlessly. Celebrity accountant Vanessa Foran, thank you so much for joining.
Sorry, John, before we go, there's a thing in Trinity on Monday night. It's a lecture called Crisis in Democracy. So if there's spare tickets, everybody try and get to see it. Okay,
we put up a link on the site tomorrow. Olga Cronin, thanks so much for joining us from Shifting in town. Johnny Keenan in Kilkenny, thanks so much. Oh, Dermot, we can see you now. Goodbye.
Thank
you very much. And thank you to everybody. We'll be on the site tomorrow or here next week. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
I'm missing. Did I not thank
Sean?
I thank. Oh yeah, and Sean McCallum.
And Stephen.
Johnny?
Stephen. I didn't
Stephen
Did you
Garland.
mention Johnny?
Neil by mouth.
Yeah, Johnny Keenan. We did.
Johnny Keenan.
Okay, good night, Johnny. Good night, Dermot. Good night, Neil. Good night, Olga. Good night, John.